Stories with Intention podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. Hello and welcome to Rise and Thrive podcast. Today I have a beautiful guest with me, Mary Gould. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited as always. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what do you do currently and where are you from, please?
Well, I am a neuro language coach, and so that is someone who helps people to learn um, foreign languages, either for personal or professional goals. And I am from, well, right now I live in Duluth, Minnesota, but I grew up in Europe and then uh, eventually ended up in the States in Duluth.
Wow, that's amazing. Um, so yeah, we have quite a few things in common, so I'm really
Mhm.
excited here. I always am, but anyhow. So you've lived in three countries, like you've mentioned, and studied more than 14 languages. When I saw that, I was
Yes,
like,
that's right.
wow, that's amazing. What first drew you into the world of languages? I'm really curious.
Well, so I was born in Brussels and I went to school in French there and my grandmother she came over from the States and she lived there for uh, about 2 years. And so she decided to teach me to read in English and I'm never gonna need this. This language is crazy, the spelling and just yeah, never gonna need English. So I just wanted to focus on French. Not that French spelling is actually much better, but you know. So then we moved to Austria when I was about 9, and then I had to learn German, and then we moved my parents wanted to go back home um in um when after I had been in Austria for 5 years, and then it wasn't home for me because I had never lived in the States before. And they moved to a little tiny town of 8,000 people. Well, it was tiny for me. And so it was a small town in Nebraska, and the population of the whole state of Nebraska was the same size at the time as cities that I had lived in, Brussels and Vienna. And so that didn't go over very well. I didn't handle that very well. And so I was having intense culture shock. It was really bad. And so before this, I hadn't really cared about languages as I said, I had also studied Dutch in school and I just didn't understand it. It was weird. Excuse me. But then when all the languages were taken away from me, then suddenly I was like, why is everything in English all the time? It started to drive me crazy. So then I started studying languages as much as I could, like any opportunity that I got, I would study a language. And so now I've ended up getting up to 18 and
Wow.
well, depending on so 14 with like serious study, and then a couple others just dabbling, just for fun. And then I decided to use that for my well, professionally, and I started off studying translation at Kent State, which has an amazing program. um that's where I got my master's in translation. And then my wonderful daughter was born, and I decided I didn't want to sit at a computer for 8 hours a day and translate. So then um, I got into neuro language coaching, which is a much better fit, all things considered.
Wow. That's so amazing to hear all that and the everything you had to go through and just amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I've learned a few languages in my younger years, I would say, but unfortunately some of them if you don't use them, they kind of fade away. So, yeah,
Well, they're
basically.
they're still in there.
Oh, yes.
You just have to draw them out. But
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah. The brain is really amazing. It really is.
They're stored in the back somewhere in a compartment I can't quite reach at the moment. But that's
Yeah.
true, like everything gets stored in our brains, and even if we think it's not there, they're still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really excited for you because you are going to be in the upcoming book, Yes, I Can and I Did. So
Mhm.
congratulations on that.
Thank
It's
you.
a wonderful topic collaboration book that actually we're both gonna be in. And what made you decide to go into authorship? Was it something that happened, some inspiration? Please tell us about that. How do you got into authorship?
Well, so I mean, it was a combination of things, as it probably is for most people, but I I wanted to get the story out there of what happened in my life because, now as I've said, I'm a neuro language coach, and so I help people learn languages based on their brain and the way it learns and what's going on in their brain. And I want them to understand what the brain is doing so that they don't get so stressed out when they are trying to learn and don't understand why they're not making progress and so forth. Um, so sorry, I keep hitting this. Um, so I got into neuro language coaching because of my daughter. And so she has an amazing story. She has cerebral palsy and she's nonverbal and um she couldn't she didn't have a way to communicate until she was 4. And turns out she didn't know English until then either. I didn't realize that. Um and her little brain is so amazing because it so that the brain when it learns languages, it looks for patterns. And that's how you learn to, add ed to the end of past tense words, or uh, put adjectives before or after, depending on the language, the nouns, and so forth. And so it learns the stuff automatically. And so she she didn't understand the language because she couldn't move around and touch things and do things like other people do when they learn languages. Well, when they're little, when their brain is starting to learn their native language, she didn't have that as an option. And so she was just kind of confined within herself. And so she didn't um how do I say that? She didn't Well, her brain didn't have the input that it needed to learn when other kids at the same age that other kids learned. And so, um, long story short, and without giving away any spoilers, I taught her to communicate in a tactile version of Morse code once I figured out, oh, does, she, she, I thought that she was understanding everything that I said because, like I said, her brain was catching on to these patterns. So she could actually answer questions that I asked her, like if I told her a story and then I said, uh, who is who is so and so? Is it a king, or is it a princess, or whatever? And so she could, based on how I had told the story, she knew to associate the name of the person with what they did in the story. And so she could answer the question the right way. Just, like if I said, raise your left arm if the person was a toy maker, or your right arm if the person was a mom, or whatever. And so she could answer it that way, but she didn't understand what I was saying. She just knew, oh, okay, Joe, toy maker. Okay, those two words go together. So I'm going to raise my arm because I said, okay, raise this arm if the person was a toy maker, if Joe was a toy maker. Okay, yeah, those two go together. So I'm going to raise this arm. And so it's just, man, the brain is amazing. But so then through a series of events, it became clear that she wasn't understanding. And so then I started to teach her Morse code, and which she learned in a week.
Oh, wow.
And so now she can give me any kind of feedback that she wants. She can tell me whatever she wants to tell me, and it's just opened up a whole new door for her of expressing herself and being able to communicate. And she once she broke through that barrier, she just zoomed ahead. She started solving algebra problems that I had to write down and still got wrong, by the way.
Mhm.
But she was doing this when she was 4. And so
Oh,
she's
wow.
correcting me and she's like, "No, mom, the answer is 23," or whatever. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, she's a pretty amazing little girl.
Oh, that's amazing. And you've done such a wonderful work with her, and the time and the devotion you've given her, that's incredible. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So you also founded Language of Hope. What does
Mhm.
hope then mean to you in the context of language learning?
That's a great question. So, it means everything. I mean, the it's really my whole purpose because the the people that I work with, well, I mean, if you can do everything all yourself, then you do, right? Or if you think you can. But if you once you notice, okay, I'm starting to have trouble or I have been having trouble and I'm not able to figure out how to get past this point, whether it's you freeze up because you're nervous when you have to talk in front of people in another language, or you you just can't remember the vocabulary, or you grammar is terrible and you're just super afraid of it, or whatever the reason is, there's some reason that you reach out to somebody and maybe Duolingo isn't cutting it for you or whatever. And I have so many people that come to me because they've been working with Duolingo and it's just not working. And um so everybody has some kind of problem with their language learning or their expression in another language, or I mean, even if you're at a very high level, there's still going to be a difference in your native language and your acquired languages. So, um, so the reason that I am that my company is called Language of Hope is because it is uh my message is your brain is really, really smart. It really is. It loves to recognize patterns, and it will recognize them if you show it to your brain in the right way. If you give your brain what it needs, it will respond with, "Oh, okay. Hey, I can do that. I can understand that." And so there's so many people, especially in North America, who have had some kind of negative experience, and they feel like they can't learn a second language. I've had so many people tell me that. And it makes me cringe every single time because they they obviously learned a language or they wouldn't be able to tell me that in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So their brain is capable of it, but they just need to be given the hope that it's actually possible for them. And again, by understanding what's going on in the brain, it allows people to work with the brain instead of work against it. And if I can just say, sitting in a classroom staring at a textbook is not going to get you there. It's just that that's not a anything close to the most productive way to learn a language. So,
Mhm. If I may backtrack a little bit, for listeners who may not be familiar with this topic too much, what makes neural language coaching different from traditional language coaching?
um, well, so there's if I can broaden the question a little bit more even, you have language teaching, you have language coaching, and you have neuro language coaching. So language teaching is you're in a classroom, your teacher decides what you study, you you get tested on it or at least evaluated or whatever, and you're in frequently, not always, but you're frequently with a group of people, which limits your exposure to speaking and or doing things that you want to do, or that you need to do to continue developing. And it's just it's well, two things. One thing is it's from the teacher's perspective. And the other thing is classes are designed to produce grades, not to produce language in the learner's brain. And I mean that sounds kind of pessimistic, but I mean ultimately if you're in a university, uh, what the university needs is what grade did you get? And the teacher then has to submit that. And I've taught in a university. I've taught German. And that's what I had to do. I knew, this person needs to do such and such to get better, but all my other students, they they have needs too. And so I can't focus just on one person. So I mean, you can have single um private language lessons, and those are a little bit different, but still you decide what you're going to talk about. And I mean, from the perspective of a teacher, you decide what you're going to teach your student, and which vocabulary and blah blah blah. And so that's teaching, right? Then you have language coaching, which is um basically you are you want to learn a language, you go to a coach and you say, help me do it. I am, sorry, I am going to be responsible for my own learning, and I just want you to guide me, right? So, I mean, it's basically like any other kind of coaching, only based on languages. So, um, the the main difference between neuro language coaching and regular language coaching is that in neuro language coaching, yes, we do make sure that the coachee has the the motivation and the I don't know that responsibility is really the word that I want to use, but the takes ownership of the learning and does things in the way that they think is best, and all of those things. But we continuously pour into them, this is what's going on in your brain. How are you feeling about what you're doing, and how does that relate to language learning, and how do you say this in your other language? Which, first of all, especially in regular teaching, you generally are told that you don't want to bring in all these other languages because it's confusing, and I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that because it doesn't make sense to me because I speak so many languages and I cannot separate them. But but your brain is going to be drawing patterns from these other languages. So it makes perfect sense to say that you would um that you that you would draw draw from the languages and compare and contrast and see what's the same and what's different rather than just okay, we're only talking in Polish or whatever, and so that's the only language that we're gonna focus on. You're just throwing away all the other resources that your brain has. So um yeah, I think that may have been a tangent, and I think I forgot what the original question was, but in case you haven't noticed, I'm just very passionate about this topic. So,
Oh no, no,
so
that
did
was
I?
really good. I love that it was in depth, and for those who may not have come across it, it does help for sure explain. I think it's so fascinating, and I didn't even know some of this stuff. So thank you so much for
Sure.
and someone who studied what Polish, Russian, Italian, a little bit of Spanish, French a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, and even some other languages I've touched upon because of curiosity, like some Eastern languages and stuff like that. Even Japanese, I was trying to take on Japanese
Cool.
one time. I'm
Very
like,
cool.
oh, so yeah, they're fun. But it does take time to invest in learning things like that. But
It
again,
does. It does.
you have a child who definitely needed your help, and you've taught yourself, you teaching her, and now you're helping hundreds of people around the world, if not thousands, right? So that's such an amazing gift to have. And I guess you have authored also in several language learning books and created fun products for learners. What inspired you to bring creativity and humor into these pieces?
Well, so the fact that it wasn't there, basically. Um, so I one of the things that I like to do for my daughter is to just so we have an Alexa device. Well, we have a few of them, and so I'll say, Alexa, tell Alethea a joke, and so she'll do it, and it'll be a really terrible joke because they usually are the ones that she has. But sometimes I'll tell her that to do it in another language, and because Alethea she loves languages as much as I do, and so now that she has access to communication, she really loves to learn as many languages as she can too. And so when I have her tell a language in an or tell a joke in another language, then I explain it so that, this is a pun and it works in this language because of blah blah blah. And so in English, it either it does work because it transfers, or it doesn't work because these words aren't similar in English. And so like the process of explaining teaches her about language and also about humor, and it's just fun. So the book that I'm working on right now is uh teaching language through humor, and so that's not the title. I haven't decided on the for sure title yet, but um but yeah, so I'm working on a series of books um that has jokes of different kinds of jokes, like puns and riddles and just like signs and things, different types of ways to have your brain connect in different ways to the language. And so I find that much more effective because when you enjoy what you're learning, your brain's going to want to do it. It's not going to
Hmm.
fight you. And when you don't have to fight your brain, it works so much better.
It does. It definitely does. I remember from the years when I was actually came to Canada and didn't speak English, and I was, very homesick, and you think you'd be excited going to school and learning. I mean, to some part I was, but the other part of me was resisting learning because I didn't like why. I was sad. I was, missing my family,
Mhm.
and it's just like it just seemed like impossible hill to climb at that time.
Yeah.
But once I got over, and that's why I actually didn't want to learn French at that time either. I was like, oh, like I want another language. This
Mm-hmm.
one was hard
Mm-hmm.
enough to learn.
Yeah. Oh
But you
yeah.
know what? Years later, I realized what a gift it is to actually, speak another language or two or three, or in your case, so many, which is amazing, by the way, again, still.
Well, thank you.
Um, and I realized that, my once my brain opened up to languages, I actually like I learned Italian in 6 months. I actually
Mhm.
walked everywhere with the dictionary and study. Okay, what does that mean? What did he say? Okay, and I would look it up. That's how fast your brain can learn when it's interested, and it's like it
Right.
was just like I was inhaling Italian. I
Oh
love.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm
then,
sure. I'm
yeah,
sure.
and at first when I heard about French, I was like, oh my goodness, that seems impossible to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But then years
Mm-hmm.
later, after learning Italian, and because I had ambition and I wanted to learn, my mom was
Right.
like, yeah, give it to me. I want
Mm-hmm.
to learn. And I started
Yeah.
picking
Yeah.
up French. And it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
It's just I
Yeah.
perceived it that way at that time because
Right. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things I was going through, and then it just piled up one on another on top of the other one. But
Mm-hmm.
when you find
Mm-hmm.
purpose in something, excitement, I definitely agree. You can learn it so much faster. It's like boom, boom, and it's like, oh, like,
Right.
you were talking about your daughter. You gave her the tools, and then boom, she took off like crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said something really important that the things that you were going through made shaped your language experience at that time, and then later on it changed and your brain perceived the language in a different way, even though it was the same language. So
Hmm.
that that is an excellent example of how every learner's experience is different. At any given point in time, it can be different. So this whole idea of let's stick people in a classroom and just okay, give them all the same thing, treat them all in the same way because nobody's different. It just it doesn't work. And so um I just totally lost my train of thought, which is really annoying because I was going to make a really good point. So when my daughter was born, I had a stroke. And so I'm fine, everything's great now, but I have short-term memory issues. If I either get interrupted or if I interrupt myself because I decide to go off on a tangent, then I have trouble getting my train of thought back, which is really annoying because I really wanted to tell you something. But
About kids in the class and all treated like one. Does that trigger
yeah,
anything?
yeah, well, it was
He'll come back.
yeah, it it was something that I really, really wanted to say. So if I think of it, may I have your permission to just be like,
Sure,
oh, I got it.
for sure,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay. Okay.
I get that all the time. I'm like talking, talking. It's like, wait, what did I
Hmm.
say?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's all good. Um, so yeah, no, I love languages, and that's why I said, at the beginning when I read your bio before the show, I was like, wow, this is so interesting. I mean, aside from, the bumps we have to come across when we don't speak a language and
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
learn, but I,
Oh,
I mean, life is different. We all have different experiences, so we can share them, teach one another, help each other
hmm.
out, and things like that. So it all has
Right.
to we have to go through life, it's not
Right.
just gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh, life and it's done.
Right. And I did remember what I was going to say. So the 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 brain as it ages, people go through different stages of life and everybody probably everybody knows, I think that kids learn languages the most easily and then they go through puberty and then you if you're a woman you get pregnant and then you eventually have menopause and your brain is doing so many different things and it's reacting to what's going on in your body and so it's not just your brain learning language, it's your whole person, your whole self. And so if if you have if if your yourself as a whole person is gonna have a baby in 2 months, your brain is gonna be thinking differently than if you're you know, 12, 13, like we were when we moved, you and I, our experience is going to be different. And so that's another reason why it's important to realize that your brain and again your whole self is reacting to whatever your situation in life is, and that makes your learning experience very unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then sometimes we forget that, just because we are talking here about one thing, our brain at the same time is processing so many other things all
Mhm.
around us, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stuff, maybe you have pain somewhere in your ankle or whatever, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
you're looking outside, you see the weather, you wish you were outside, but yet you're talking, and
Right,
it's
yeah.
like we think
Yeah.
it's just one thing because that's the thing we're doing, but so many other things are going on all
Hmm.
around us at the
Hmm.
same time. So the brain is definitely an amazing thing. So it's amazing. In your chapter coming up, yes, I can, and I did. Without going into too much detail because we don't want to spell all of it, what message are you most excited for readers to take away?
That the brain is amazing. And that I mean really I think I've pretty much already said all this, but that that the brain is capable of learning even under conditions that you wouldn't expect it to be able to. And so and that's whether it's you not expecting it to be able to or other people not expecting it of you. Your brain can do it. It is the most amazing organ that we have in our body. And so if you give it a chance, it'll do it. And maybe you need help. Maybe you just need somebody to teach you Morse code. uh, you have to be creative. You have to give it what it needs when it needs it. And there are lots of people with learning disabilities that think, well, I don't learn the same way as other people, and so I can't learn a language or whatever. But actually, well, so really, learning languages is very good for the brain. It helps with dyslexia. It helps with all these other things because it the brain figures out, oh, okay, I need to this is what's going on. I understand this now. Now I can handle all these other aspects of my life that I had been having trouble with before. And I am not saying that learning languages will cure dyslexia or anything, but I'm saying it will help. It
Yeah.
or it should help, I mean. Um, and there's also there have been studies that people who learn another language, they their risk of Alzheimer's gets delayed by like 4.5 years or so.
Hmm.
Which, yeah, because you're keeping your brain, well,
Active.
you're training your brain to think in new ways, and it's forming new pathways, new neural connections,
Exactly.
and and so somehow my mom didn't know that until just the other day, and I was like, really? I thought everybody knew. But that's just because that's a space that I'm in. And so I'm making a point to tell people the brain and languages, they go together very well. They they were made for each other, basically.
Yeah. And it's funny, because up until maybe a few months ago, I've never read really anything on neuroscience, Dr. Joe
Hmm.
Dispenza stuff.
Hmm.
And then I
Hmm.
picked up the book and I started reading. I'm like, oh, this is so easy. This is like, this makes sense. And
Hmm.
then somebody
Hmm.
else was like, I don't understand what he's talking about. Say, how can you not? I said, I don't know. My brain just understands it, it processes it. Um, and maybe if I picked it up 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, I don't know what it's talking about. But
Hmm.
the more you feed the brain and learning and things like that, yeah, so many
Hmm.
different channels open up. Yeah, aside from that Italian, I still remember some, but I haven't used it for a long time,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean it's not there. I just have to freshen
Right.
up.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
if I went to
Hmm.
Italy right now, I think within a month, I'll probably get the language back
Oh yeah.
because I would be right
Yeah.
there hearing it all the time, and it would come back
Mhm.
just like that, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brain is definitely an amazing thing we have been
Yeah.
gifted with.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so much is yet unexplored, but science
Mhm.
slowly getting slowly.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Yeah.
done a lot of things recently, but it's definitely amazing to learn and to explore, and
Mhm.
maybe I'll go back into studying languages again a little bit more in depth.
Well,
Those or
you
no.
have my contact information if you if you decide to
Like,
do
how
that.
do I teach this old brain again? New tricks?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The name of the podcast is Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention.
mhm.
I like to hear your views. How important do you think it is to set intentions first thing in the morning for the rest of your day?
Well, it sets the focus of your day, and it I mean, from a language learning perspective, it is a great thing to study languages first thing in the morning because you get your mind focused on that language for the rest of your day. And so for my coachees, I'll suggest that they uh, pick out a few words that you want to know that you want to learn that day. And so then they'll do it. And it takes 10-15 minutes that they look at previous words or choose new words. And then through the rest of their day, they can see where they encounter those words or how they can find purposes to use those words. And that's how you create those connections in your brain, is um by applying the vocabulary to your daily life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would have like at least 100 more questions, but we're kind of out of time today. But I'd love to bring you on one day when you publish your other books and talk about them, of course. So if you're
Sure.
up for it. In the meantime, thank you so much to everyone for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with us, of course, all that information will be listed in this video, how to get in touch with Mary. And stay tuned for the upcoming books. Follow us, subscribe so you don't miss anything. Till next time, I wish everybody a wonderful day, and thank you so much for being on my show, Mary. It was honestly
Yeah.
a pleasure to have you, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Thank you, you too.
Thank you.